Video opens with grainy news footage-style clips. A public bus engulfed in flames on a deserted road, smoke billowing into the sky. Quick cuts to empty city streets, shuttered storefronts, and the anxious faces of civilians peering from behind curtains. The year is 1988. Sri Lanka, the pearl of the Indian Ocean, is on fire. Not from a foreign invasion, but from within. A wave of chaos sweeps across the nation, leaving a trail of fear and destruction. This was the second insurrection led by the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna, or JVP, a period of brutal conflict that would come to be known as the Bhishana Samaya, the Reign of Terror. Cut to scenes of student protests, banners waving, followed by clashes with police. Archival-style footage shows young, armed militants in civilian clothes patrolling rural roads. It began as a ripple of political discontent, fueled by economic hardship and opposition to the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord. But it quickly escalated into a full-blown insurgency. The JVP, a Marxist-Leninist party, mobilized a militant wing targeting state infrastructure, political opponents, and anyone who dared to defy their authority. Student unions became hotbeds of radicalization, and a campaign of forced hartals, or general strikes, paralyzed the country. Disobedience was met with death. Posters appeared overnight, issuing chilling warnings to workers and public servants. The message was simple: stay home or face the consequences. Show a montage of newspaper headlines detailing assassinations. A list of names appears on screen: prominent politicians, artists, academics, and journalists. The violence was systematic and relentless. The list of victims reads like a who's who of Sri Lanka's intellectual and political elite. Lionel Jayatileke, a government minister. Thevis Guruge, the head of the State Broadcasting Corporation. Professor Stanley Weasundara, a university vice-chancellor. Gladys Jayawardene, a prominent public servant. These were not just statistics. They were voices of moderation, pillars of society, silenced forever. The objective was clear: to dismantle the state's command structure and create a power vacuum. Fear became the new currency, and no one was safe. Transition to animated graphs. A line representing Sri Lanka's GDP takes a sharp, dramatic dive. Images of destroyed tea factories, sabotaged power stations, and burnt-out government offices are overlaid on the graph. As the body count rose, the economy collapsed. The JVP's campaign of sabotage was brutally effective. Over 1,500 buses were destroyed, crippling public transport. 237 tea factories, the backbone of the nation's export economy, were damaged or razed. Power transformers, government buildings, and crucial infrastructure were systematically targeted. The economic cost was staggering. In 1988 alone, the damage was estimated to be over 3 billion rupees, equivalent to a staggering 22% of the country's entire GDP for that year. The engine of the nation's economy had been brought to a grinding halt. Cinematic recreation. A journalist types frantically in a dimly lit room, looking over his shoulder. A trade union leader argues with young militants trying to force his factory to close. A family quietly packs their belongings in a village hut, their faces etched with fear. For ordinary people, life became a daily struggle for survival. Journalists who reported the truth were threatened. Union leaders who tried to protect their workers were assassinated. In villages across the South, families were forced to flee their homes, caught between the JVP's reign of terror and the government's increasingly brutal counterinsurgency. Schools were deserted as teachers and students alike were too afraid to attend. An entire generation's education was sacrificed at the altar of ideology. The social fabric of the nation was being torn apart, thread by thread. Show scenes of government security forces in armored vehicles patrolling towns. The tone shifts to the state's response. Faced with the collapse of the state, the government launched a ruthless counteroffensive. Paramilitary groups operating with impunity were unleashed to hunt down JVP operatives and sympathizers. It was a dark, lawless period of disappearances and extrajudicial killings. The cycle of violence spiraled and the lines between protector and perpetrator blurred. The terror of the night was replaced by the terror of the state, and the Sri Lankan people were trapped in the middle, victims of a war they never asked for. Slow-motion shots of ruined buildings, abandoned playgrounds, and a memorial wall with names of the deceased. The camera pans across a field, symbolizing the lost agricultural output and the graves of the fallen. By the time the violence subsided in late 1989, the toll was catastrophic. Official estimates vary, but it is believed that over 40,000 lives were lost in just 2 years. 40,000 sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers. The economic devastation set Sri Lanka back by a decade, creating wounds that would take generations to heal. The JVP's leadership was eventually eliminated, and the insurrection was crushed, but the victory was hollow. The price was a shattered economy, a traumatized populace, and a deep-seated mistrust that poisoned the nation's psyche for years to come. The screen fades to black, with a single line of text appearing. The cost was not just in lives and rupees. It was in the loss of a nation's innocence, its potential, and its future. Final shot of a burning flame, which slowly extinguishes. A final line of text appears on the screen as dramatic orchestral music swells and then fades. History repeats, unless we learn from it. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories.